Hello and welcome. My name is Taylor Magnus from Sage Consulting. With the newly released R4 update, Intacct released a number of new exciting features and functionality, so we wanted to get some videos out surrounding the features we thought our clients would most benefit from. In this video, we'll be talking about the addition of automated lien waiver generation and how we can use this new compliance type with our vendor compliance validation at the point of payment. Sage has been putting in a considerable amount of focus on vendor compliance. In the last R3 update, we saw the addition of vendor compliance surrounding documents typically required for subcontractors. With that, we can now completely disallow payments for vendors that have not provided their required documents or if previously submitted documents have expired. With this new addition, based on the rules we built out, Sage Intacct will now automatically generate lien waivers, and payments can be controlled based on whether or not our vendor or subcontractor has returned signed lien waivers. Let's jump in and see how this works. Similar to the previously available compliance functionality, to get started, we need to set up our compliance definitions and compliance types. The compliance definition is essentially a rule set, while the compliance type is specific to actual documents, and each compliance definition can have multiple compliance types housed. That said, let's jump in and see what this looks like. The first step is to set up our compliance definition, which I've already done. Starting at the top, we have our definition ID, name, and description, as well as our status fields. As we move down, we come into our generation rules area. Here, we can see this definition has been set to generate for each AP bill, but you can alternatively have it generate for each payment instead if required for your particular workflow. Below, we have our threshold set up. In this case, we have no minimum as far as the lien waiver amount, but we do have a minimum for our primary document, which would be, in most cases, our subcontracts. With those set, we can now set these to automatically generate and define which primary documents we want these lien waivers generated for. Given this definition is for lien waivers, our validation type is whether or not that document has been marked as received. Finally, in our notifications area, we can set our rule as to what action we want the system to take if we attempt to pay a vendor not in compliance. In this case, I've just set it to give a warning. With that done, we can now move into our compliance type area. I already have one created, so let's briefly talk it over. Like our definition, first we set up our ID, name, description, and status. Below, we see that I have tied this to the appropriate compliance definition. To the right, we can set up a numbering sequence for the document, as well as lay out which printed document template we want the system to use. Now that we have that done, let's jump into the area where we can review our generated lien waivers and mark them as received. To do that, we'll come into purchasing and then to compliance records under vendor compliance. I have one generated here that we can review. As you can see, we can drill into the original primary document, but to mark the document as received, we'll click Edit to the left here. In our compliance details here, we can now mark that document as received, as well as indicate who received that document and the date it was received. Now, the last thing I'll show is what it would look like if we were to attempt to pay this vendor, noting that this document has not yet been marked as received. Now, within our Pay Bills area of Accounts Payable, when I filter by our sample subcontractor vendor, we'll see a warning is populated in our vendor compliance column for this invoice. Based on the way we set up our compliance definition to only give a warning, we would be allowed to pay this vendor, but we could have also set this up to prevent payment altogether. As we showed in the previous R3 release surrounding vendor compliance, we can drill into our warning or error, as I'm doing here, to see what's causing our error, as well as go into the compliance document itself to mark the document as having been received. Once done, our warning or error will then be removed. We just went with a simple setup for demonstration purposes, but there are a number of ways this new feature can be configured to match workflow needs of our clients, and we're excited to see what has been a pretty highly anticipated addition. Thanks for watching, and as always, if you have any questions surrounding this feature or anything having to do with Sage Intacct, don't hesitate to reach out to our team here at Sage.